All right, hi everybody. Thank you for joining today. We are going to get started in just a minute. We see a lot of people trickling in. We want to make sure everybody gets a chance to get their audio set up and all logged in before we can go ahead and get started so nobody misses anything. So we'll start here in just about a minute. All right, I see just a couple more people trickling in. In just a moment, we'll get started. All right, let's get started. We only have 30 minutes, so in the interest of everybody's time, we'll get this thing going. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining today. My name is Jeremy Lipton. I am a rep for the financial services industry supporting back office systems. I've had the pleasure of working with Epic Brokers for about a year and a half now, specifically with Scott and Jim for about a year. And we want to thank them for joining us today to share their story. We also want to thank everybody else for joining us today to hear that story. So to go ahead and jump right in, our agenda, we're going to pack a lot into a short amount of time just to kind of make the most of everybody's busy schedules. So we're going to go and we're going to start with Epic's background. So Scott's going to share the background of Epic, the transformation review, what lessons they've learned, and then we're going to open it up for the second half for question and answer. So for the question and answer to work, anybody can feel free to ask questions throughout the whole presentation. You might have noticed there was an additional box that popped up to the viewing one that is labeled chat. You can put in whatever questions you might have into that box, and at the end, I'll be moderating and sharing those questions with Scott, and he'll be able to answer them for you. So to jump in, I'll go ahead and I'll let Jim introduce himself, and then he'll pass the ball to Scott.
Thank you, Jeremy. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Brull, and I am an managing partner of Centroid. I currently manage the sales and marketing of the company, and prior to that, I spent 20 years as a consultant deploying ERP systems globally. Before I introduce our main speaker, just want to tell you briefly about Centroid, who we are, what we do, and who we are for. We are a cloud services and technology company that provides Oracle Enterprise Workload Consulting and cloud managed services. Such services are cloud ERP implementations and deployments. Many of our customers are in the SMB and the mid-market space, and of course, across many industries. We've been in business for 23 plus years. One of the main differentiators in the marketplace that we have, we created a unique methodology and accelerator that allows organizations to deploy cloud ERP lightning fast. As an example, on average, we are 50% less expensive and 50% less time frame. That kind of goes hand in hand. We call this accelerator lightning. In fact, it's one of the reasons Epic chose the Oracle solution over other cloud solutions, and it's also why they chose Centroid for the deployment. And of course, as the webinar is about, we shall soon hear about Epic and its benefits that they realized with Oracle Cloud ERP. But before we get to that, let me introduce you to our guest speaker. He has been in the insurance industry for 16 plus years, 30 plus years in the financial industry. He has experience deploying and using many ERP systems like Great Plains, Mass 500, Workday, and of course, Oracle. He is an Executive Vice President, Chief Financial Officer of Epic. Please welcome Scott Toeffel.
Thanks, Jim, and thanks, Jeremy. So give you a little background first about Epic. Epic is a large retail broker in the insurance space. Right now, currently with the latest acquisition, just under $1 billion in revenue. I came to Epic through an acquisition they made last year of Prime Risk. At that time, Prime Risk, we were only about 120 million of revenue, so definitely have grown into a lot bigger organization quickly. I'm actually not the CFO for Epic because there actually is one there, but they did keep me on from the acquisition, and part of the reason was because of the things like they wanted to do here with Oracle. At Prime, we were already on Oracle, and so was another piece that Epic had acquired. So they wanted to look to getting into a large system. Part of the reason is currently they were on multiple systems, about I think 17 different ones, and they were consolidating everything into Sagitta. And for those of you who aren't in the insurance industry, Sagitta is an agency management system platform, which is good for an agency management system, but horrible from a financial reporting system. Most agency management systems are really good for agency work, but if you really need anything outside of basic P&L and balance sheet, you're not going to get it out of them. It's just not their strength, and they try and meet the minimum needs there, and I don't blame them for it. But obviously, a company the size of Epic and anything of substantial size, you're going to need more reporting, especially if you have outside investors, et cetera, et cetera. It just requires more power and more capabilities than your typical agency management system is going to get. So as I said, the initial state was to get from 17 down to 1. We wanted something that would go quick, and Jim actually mentioned that one of the pluses to both Oracle, being that both Prime and another acquisition, Integra, were already on it, was the capability of Centroid, and having both of us know being able to get there. We wanted to have Oracle done before budgeting season starts in September. And we started discussing this project shortly after I came on board in November, but really started ramping up in February. So we've gone pretty much, we're on the phase 3 now. We'll get a little more into that, but we've done it in 5 months, 6 months, completed the whole project, including converting all these systems into Oracle. Thanks to Jim and his team there for a lot of help there. The major issues, obviously, too many systems. And since each unit that was owned by Epic is running their own system, there's a lot of different procedures being followed. There's no consistency. Even though we've created a shared services for accounting and IT, it's still more individualized. So there's just a lot of relying on too many outside systems, outside parties. And of course, I'm sure most of if you're in this situation, then you're taking that data and somebody's manually manipulating it to putting into whatever system you're doing your reporting in. So there's just the chances of errors goes way up. So hence, lots of manual workarounds, which is, as Sarbanes-Oxley proved us, doing a lot of manual work in spreadsheets was frowned upon and created a lot of issues. So what we wanted to look forward in the system was, 1, to get everybody on a common platform. 2, obviously to standardize our chart of accounts, as well as standardize our policies. Wanted a working shared services platform. So what I mean by that is having an accounts payable team that handles the whole company, not, well, this part did this part did this part did this, and they never really talked and worked together. Same on the GL side. So putting a lot of that into a common bucket. Thank you, Jeremy. Let's just say next slide, please. So kind of covered these a little bit, but as I said, we're getting 17 instances down to 1. We just finished the conversion on the 3rd one, and we're actually putting in the last month over the next couple of days. Putting in a common and consistent best practices. We had a call earlier today as we're starting to work on this now. We're all in the same system. As a lot of you probably noticed, I don't know if you have, but 2 of our units had $5,000 minimum for prepaid. Everybody else was using 10. It's just an example. When you have everybody kind of doing their own, there's very a lack of consistency. And as you can probably imagine, the audit at year end's a lot more fun because we're giving them the balance that once everything's entered in Sagitta, but then you got to get all the detail on all these other systems. So it makes your audit more costly. You got too many people having to answer audit questions, provide more detail for them. It's, I don't know if Clint Eastwood had a cluster F word for that in one of his movies. It was pretty good fitting when you're this big and you're trying to do that. The next one is the biggest one, the foundation for quick adoption as we grow. Epic requires a lot of businesses, and being able to ramp them up quickly. And one of the things we found at Prime and at another organization I was at that went to a competing system that I didn't like as much, but I won't say what its name is. We didn't, being able to get them on your GL right away is, to me, a very important part of it. Converting them into agency management systems, you can't do that right away. That can take 3 months to a year. And that's really not that bad if you have to wait on that, if you can get the GL piece done immediately. And with moving to Oracle, we can close on them and we can do their first month from a general ledger's perspective, AP perspective, get them in there for depreciation and financial reporting, all done in the first month after the acquisition. And then really from an agency management system, I don't know how much you got, any of you from the insurance, but really all that's being kept out there is our accounts receivable, our carrier payables, our commissions payables to brokers and our producers, and then of course the revenue and the expense from that. So it's basically 5 major categories. So bringing that in at the end of each month to finish up your financials in Oracle is actually not that hard to do. And once you map it once, so as we bring in anybody and they're on another system for a while, mapping that piece of it in the, for the first month and going forward is not an overly complicated process. And it makes it so much easier to get them into your system and get them as part of your financial reporting really quick without them having to keep everything in another system, and you don't have some of that control you'd like to have. The other thing that I touched on was creating a true shared services model. Right now we have over 130 people in the accounting department, probably about a dozen in AP, about a dozen on the GL side. We have a big portion of that sits in the agency management doing, premium receivables and payables, and that'll stay there. But even at the same rate we're doing this, we're also moving everybody into a common instance of Sajita. So our goal would be by hopefully maybe the end of next year to have everybody in one instance of Sajita and everybody in Oracle, so all that flows together really well. But as the AP team has come together, we're getting them working together. We're going to try and align them better around industries instead of right now companies, and some of them were about alphabet. We want them to get to know the leaders. So we'll have 1 or 2 that work on like all our IT vendors, so they can work directly with our CIO, and it helps answer questions and get to know the vendors. And to me, it feels like when you do that, they have more helpfulness and control to help with your vendors. And if they see issues that can be brought to, in this case, the CIOs right away, it's like, hey, you've told us the pricing to be this, here's what's coming in at, or, hey, I've seen this, just get a little more, personal relationship there. Banking integration was another big one. Most systems in the agency don't have any way of doing any banking. So to give you an idea, the legacy part of Epic, when they wanted to pay their vendors, somebody was manually keying that information in the bank. So then you had to somebody check it. Then you had to have somebody approve it. Whereas now, Oracle directly sends that file directly to the bank, and then somebody just approves the total after they get the report, making sure it's correct. So there's also greatly less chance of errors, but it also is saving people time. We had obviously another big one, and I should add them as intercompany. All the other ones on our own systems get an intercompany report from corporate of things that intercompany. Well, now all that's going to be, they'll be just booking the entry. So it was pretty much near the end of the month, a full-time job for one person for like 10 days near the end of each month, reproducing reports, answering questions, putting all the stuff together, the backup, so you knew what it was for. All that now is going away because it'll post. You can go in Oracle and look up the backup. And another kind of an entertaining story, but we didn't have to rely on IT. And I'll be honest, we didn't actually rely on IT except for turning on the emails and approvals that come out of Oracle to make sure they didn't get blocked. But outside of that, we did not have to use IT at all. And as our auditors, they want to check this as part of, because obviously it's a big change for them. We're moving to a new system. And I had a big call with the auditors asking all these questions. They had their IT people on, and I'm thinking, oh my God, they're going to make this so much more complicated than it was. So luckily they came back at the end and said, yeah, you're right. We don't need, the audit IT people at all. We can actually check this if you can provide your trial balance from the old system and the new system so we can see how they match up and maybe a couple other reports. So from that standpoint, one, I'm avoiding probably a nice increase in my audit fee for them to check the systems, because it ended up being, like I said, a lot worse work, but you just had to convince them of that. And then doing this stuff has been, giving them those reports and showing how we tied them out. It's kind of, as you can imagine, it's pretty easy to do. So we've been, able to do that and, keep that cost down. The next slide, please, Jeremy. So kind of give you, we talked about this, or I talked about it earlier on, but we started the end of February. During the month of March, we got all the parties together. We redesigned our chart of accounts. I don't know if any of you ever used an agency management system, but the way it works, it creates so many accounts. We went from 17,000 accounts to a little over 300 natural accounts. And a lot of that is just because of the way you can lay out the multiple business units and departments and everything in Oracle. I mean, if you add it all up, we may still have that money, but just natural GL accounts, we're down to a little over, I think it's 342 as the last count. Then for our implementation, we started with Prime and Integra since both of us are on Oracle. We did that obviously because we both knew Oracle. So if we ran into any bumps or any issues when we go live, our people weren't going to panic. They've used the system. They know the system. And it really, really worked well. We had, I'm not going to say a couple, we had a couple bumps like anybody, but surprisingly not anything major. Then we did the other systems in the go live in June, which were ones on other agency management systems, a Great Plains, a QuickBooks, all the other stuff that was just not in the Epic's legacy Chajita we did for the June go live the month of July. And then the big one, the Epic Legacy one, is one we just finished up. Now, we went live August 1st. We're still converting into production. Everything was in test. We're moving it into production now, including the final month of July. So for the month of August, it'll be our first time reporting in the same system for the company, maybe forever, at least as long as I've been there. So that's going to be a big plus for us. Obviously with Oracle, we're also using EPBCS. You guys need a better name for that. It's too many initials in a row. And we're trying to get, that's going to be our main reporting. So there's been a lot of things we're doing with manual reports where we pull data, put it together in Excel. Our big goal for September is to minimize that more. We've already minimized some, but obviously going through all this, our focus has been on getting the GL's data in and getting all that. So we haven't spent as much time on the reporting, but that's starting to ramp up over the next 6 to 8 weeks. We have a lot of the standard reports done, but there's a lot of more, with the functionality of Oracle, everybody's like, okay, what else can we do? And we kind of held them off until let it, obviously I would recommend is get everything in there first before you let people play and see what else they can come up with, because it'll just slow you down in the long run. And then, Jerry, if you want to go to the next slide, obviously I kind of touched on most of these, but, the benefits is we're getting all these various systems. We're taking a lot of manual work out of it. We're standardizing a lot of processes. And even with the COVID and everybody working from home, we had really no downtime. The project is ending on time. Everybody, worked hard from their home. Obviously, Oracle being a web-based system makes that a lot easier. And it's really gone surprisingly well. About the only lesson we learned, I mean, there's minor ones, but the biggest one, we weren't as diligent on our AP cleanup as we needed to be. And the reason I say this is because we took, we're taking this data, like I said, from so many different systems. And of course, as you guys are probably aware from, if you have that nobody ever spells things the same way or uses his name in the exact same way. So we missed certain things where people called it one thing or, put a dot in front of it or did anything like that, or an Inc. or an incorporated versus Inc. And we just missed some. But luckily in Oracle, you can, combine vendors. So it's a process we're going to have to clean up after. And we should have been probably a little more diligent in how we did the looking up and comparison the first time. But still, if somebody puts a the and you're sorting them in alphabetical order, the other one doesn't, say, take Vertafore, one of our vendors. Somebody had the Vertafore, somebody else has Vertafore. It still never lines up. So we could have caught some of them, but I don't, it would have saved us some time, but there would still be the cleanup to do. So I think I actually went a little further than half the time. So, Jeremy, I assume we want to open it for questions.
Yeah, definitely. So the part we've all been waiting for. So thank you, Scott, for sharing the story of Epic and your journey through this transformation. So we've got a couple of questions, but I just want to encourage everybody on with us. We have quite a few people to go into that chat. If any questions have come up, please feel free to ask and write them in, and then we'll go ahead and share them with Scott so he can answer them for you. This is a rare opportunity to hear from a CFO as experienced as Scott. So definitely it's a great opportunity to take advantage of this. So Scott, we've touched on this first question together, but somebody was curious. You guys started this project at the beginning of the COVID pandemic and when everything was shutting down. Could you share a little bit about how you guys were able to push through and not really be affected within the timeline of the project and everybody working remote?
Sure. To our credit, our IT, both at Prime and also at Integra and also through the legacy Epic, we had been moving to either terminal servers or Amazon workspaces. Excuse me. So keeping everybody up and running and getting them, set up for homes was actually a very minimal task. I think like for Prime, out of 600 employees, we had to buy 20 Chromebooks to help some people out, but everybody else was able to either take their laptop home or their, I can't remember what the littler things are called, and get set up from home. And we realistically didn't miss a beat. Obviously, some people had to go buy a second monitor, or they took their extra monitor from work and things like that. That, maybe once it's all over and people go back to the office, we'll have to make sure we get all that stuff back. But nothing major. A few people getting set up for a printer at home, or we had to buy them a printer because obviously you can't print checks. People weren't allowed, especially in New York or California, where we have a lot of people weren't allowed even to go into the offices. So it was surprisingly, with all that going on, we really didn't miss anything. As you see, we finished on time and we never fell behind. I think everybody, the team stayed focused on the project, and to their credit, they really busted their butt over the last 5 to 6 months to make sure this got done. But I think a lot of it is too, they see the benefits down the road. I'll be honest too, one of the scary parts for people, right, is, like the girl who does all the intercompany stuff, she went to her boss, who reports to me, is like, well, when that goes away, what will I be doing? And, there's some of that between us. Could we, in the long run, if somebody leaves, we might not have to replace them, of course. But there were a lot of other things that we were behind on that I would say add more value to the organization. Like, making sure everybody reconciles all the balance sheet accounts at the end of the month. I mean, if we didn't get to them, they just got pushed off and maybe done every couple months. And the little things like that are actually, doing more analytics and stuff. When you're busy doing the mundane day to day that has to be done, the value added stuff that especially an accounting department and finance department can add to the business are the ones that get pushed behind. So, one of my messages to her is, trust me, these things will get replaced. And I mean, she knew there's a lot of things we don't get done on a daily basis or a monthly basis that we need to, because all these other things come up. And now we'll be able to actually get rid of some of this mundane stuff and actually provide value to the organization in a lot better format.
All right, and we got this next question. How do you get the organizational buy-in to go forward with this project? So with finance systems are typically a lower priority as they don't typically generate additional revenue or decrease costs.
Two big things. One, like any business that's not public, Eventually, we're going to have a recap. We're going to have or a reorganization or sold to a larger competitor. So, one of the things we pointed out is at our size, if we showed them how we're currently doing, I mean, it should scare people realistically. If you're about to invest in a business and they haven't put any major financials and you're $1 billion business, you should be nervous. And that was actually the biggest selling point right there. And they know that. I mean, when you get to a certain size, and it's even less than that, but I'm kind of extenuating example there, but people, VC firms, they're going to come in, they're going to kick the tires, they're going to ask, you're putting all this diligent prep material for them together. You want that to look good. You want it to be easy to prepare, and you want to show them that you're a well-run organization. And if you have a weak back end, you may have the best front end in the world, but that weak back end, it will, I think in most cases, going to come back and bite you or cost you some money, because they're going to say, okay, we love what you're doing on the front, but we're going to have to put a system into place if we want to keep scaling this or something like that. Well, where are they going to get the money from that? They're going to take it out of what they might have paid you. So getting that done was actually very important, and that was actually an easier selling point to the committee. It included our current VC that sits on it. It was actually a very easy selling point, because they're like, yeah, we actually were hoping you guys would do this. So that actually went better than expected.
All right, we got another question. It's, do you have a team member purely dedicated to Oracle architecture management and administration and work closely with Centroid?
Yes, we actually had two. Sad story. One, unfortunately, during this, kind of tell you how we still kept on. She passed away from a cancer in the middle of this process, and yet we still finished on time. We have two others that picked up the slack, and we did have a systems person. Her name was Rosetta, who was the main liaison between not just us, Oracle, us, Centroid, and Peloton, who's doing the EPVCS. She kind of was the person that kept all that on track, kept up the timeline. So yes, we do have one person, and then we had people on the two, Tom and Neelam, on the GL team that were also very, very involved, because obviously making sure all this data was right, it comes over correctly, everything's mapped correctly, was also a huge process. So even with the unfortunate passing during this, we still hit everything on time.
All right, and I think we got enough time for just one more question. We got another minute. Is this reporting and data warehouse solution, or are you considering consolidating linking data from other systems into Oracle? If consolidating, where does all the historical financial detail info live? In the old system, or where?
So what we did is we brought over year-end balances of 2017, all of 2018, 2019 by month, and of course, obviously all of 2020 through July. So yes, for anything prior to 2017, we'll keep it in the old system, or we'll keep a record of it or save it somewhere. But we figured if we had the last 3 years would be fine for anything we need. I mean, the only possibility would be an audit that goes back further than that, but they usually 2 to 3 years is what they hit. So that's why we focused on taking that stuff and going forward from there.
All right, great. Well, we want to hold to our 30-minute promise. So thank you everybody for joining. Thank you, Scott, for sharing and answering those questions for those people who had reached out. And yeah, if there's anything else that you guys are interested in or have questions, Jim Brull's information is up on the screen in front of you, as well as my own. You may also have the information for your own Oracle rep supporting your company. But thank you everybody for joining. And again, thank you, Scott and Jim, for sharing today.
Very welcome. Thank you, Jeremy.